Drug and substance abuse constitutes a major drawback to national values. In this connection, the vision of the National Campaign Against Drug Abuse Authority is to create a healthy and prosperous society free from alcohol and drug abuse. One of NACADA's key roles is to coordinate the development, setting up and expansion of rehabilitation centers to cater for drug-dependent people.
We did a survey and we were able to identify more than 60 treatment facilities in this country. While some of them meet the minimum standards, we also realized that some really do not meet the standards required for rehabilitating people who have drug and substance use disorders. And we are not in any way discouraging their efforts. So what we're doing is to build their capacity so that they can be able to provide quality services to Kenya.
The treatment and rehabilitation of persons with substance use disorders is one that should be handled with understanding and care, since professional assistance counts a lot. In the past, there has been a misconception in some quarters that drug addicts ought to be referred to mental institutions for treatment.
We're here to tell Kenyans that addiction is a disease. Most people think that when you're addicted, you've been cursed or you're mad. Most people end up in mental institutions, and there are quite a few rehabilitation centers. And people should know, instead of taking them to those institutions where they are mental, an addict person who is taking bang, heroin, alcohol is a sick person who needs rehabilitation.
The slide into alcoholism and drug abuse takes root gradually, a habit that sometimes starts off as an experimentation or a pastime may, with time, grow into such gigantic proportions that one has no control over.
When I was 13 years old, I got into heroin. Mainly it was out of curiosity and peer pressure. As the addiction progressed, I started having conflicts with my parents, conflicts with my friends, with relatives, and my parents thought that, actually they didn't think they saw I have a problem. So as a result of this, I was taken to a number of rehabs. I've been to a number of rehabs, but for me personally, I never saw I had any problem. I believe they're the ones who had the problem.
Rampant poverty, unemployment, and generally low standards of living may be seen as the only factors that contribute to drug and substance abuse, which is not the case. In some instances, the affluent too fall victim to the vice, sometimes with worse ramifications. This may be due to peer pressure and other social influences. Whichever the case, drug addiction has dire consequences.
We formed a group of our own. We used to call it Fort Jesus, and where we will meet every evening, share drugs, share stories. And eventually I got hooked up to a hard drug, heroin and cannabis. I wanted to become a doctor. I was a very bright guy in chemistry, biology, and some other sciences. But because of my addiction, it was slightly going down, and down. When I was in high school, I was expelled 5 times in my entire high school life, 5 times. And then I secured a job as a barman, where I was at the counter. I could put drugs in people's alcohol, so that whenever they are high, I will give them excess bills. Instead of paying 1,000, they will pay me 3,000. And the 2,000 was to go and buy the heroin.
The children of the well-to-do, a bit of spoiling. They got too much money. They are given by their parents. And this is one area we need to look into. At age 18, you have a car, fueled by your father or mother, usually the mother. And you are able to move all over the places. So these are the people who are seeking pleasure. We call it pleasure principle. They take to feel high, and they find it's a good thing. So they keep on taking to get high, and the process they get hooked.
We say dependence is what? Being what?
Rehabilitation centers are grouped to provide various levels of service delivery. They range from community outreach, non-residential and inpatient services to family support and aftercare. In all these cases, the pace of recovery is dependent on the full cooperation of the addict.
It is possible for you to maintain your recovery once you've started on the journey. Since it is a journey, it is a process, it is a lifelong process, but enough people have walked that path. They have walked the path of addiction, and they are walking the path of recovery, and there are enough names. If I was allowed, I would have mentioned enough names of people, prominent people who have managed to be rehabilitated.
One thing we are doing is doing outreach programs to institutions and schools and bringing out the information, disseminating awareness to the public about the dangers of abuse. That is one thing we are doing so that there is accessibility of the information to people, the public in general.
NACADA authority has put in place measures to safeguard the interests of drug addicts who are admitted to rehabilitation centers on the path to recovery. But that is not all. Our intervention as individuals, community and the nation as a whole remains critical in addressing the drug and substance abuse menace.
We were able to launch the treatment standards, and these standards were validated by all the major treatment centers in this country, and they all agreed that if they all met those minimum standards, then we could improve the success of our treatment outcomes. So we require to encourage interventions that are community-based, NGO-based, faith-based, so that we encourage the entire community to get involved in the rehabilitation of their own people.